You're listening to Southpod, Rise of a Region, hosted by Stanfield Gray and John Yarian.
Greetings and welcome to Southpod. And we are coming to you today from the Dig South Conference itself, the real thing, in sunny Charleston, South Carolina. And I am joined by Zach, founder, originator, and dictator for life at Helpfully. Is that right? The title?
No, that's right.
Nobody can take it from you.
Nope, it's mine.
Thank you for joining the pod. And there's a lot to get to. Let's just start with Helpfully. Orient us to what you're doing and how you engage with companies. Then we'll kind of work back to your winning personality. But tell us what you do first.
Helpfully is a digital product team for hire. So we often get engaged early on as clients want to understand their market better, understand users, customers, clients, partners, look at the world with better eyes. So we come in oftentimes as a market research team, product market fit, validation as a service. We do some of the work to really get into people's lives, right? Because I think in today's technology environment, I hope you'd agree with this, a lot of the technology problems are fun and interesting, but those are far easier to solve than understanding what people really want and need.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean,
you're on
the human beings.
There.
Those are the hard people. Yeah. That's the hard part.
Are there 100 of you guys? 150? 2? What is the shape of this thing?
We're a very flexible team. So Helpfully is the kind of company that can put exactly the right resources on a project. We don't have the traditional kind of consulting model or digital agency model where there's a big pyramid and you have a bunch of lower dollar resources and eventually we get the work down into the easy stuff. We often work in a very different way. I kind of call it the Hollywood model.
Okay.
So what we do is we find a really cool project, the script, right? And then my job kind of as the executive producer is to go and pick a director, get a production designer, get a music person, all that, and those are all custom teams.
Is that a necessity? I mean, is that what it takes to do it right? Or is that an intentional choice on your part that's rooted in just how you wanted to run the company? Is it?
It was both of those. I think in order to really address, today's problems in AI and machine learning, in virtual reality and augmented reality and other mixed reality tools, Internet of Things, you actually don't just want different technology teams to bring to those kinds of engagements. You actually want to bring different researchers. You want to bring different design teams. Don't take a UX designer who's really good at screens and then say, hey, design this sensor-based flooring for us. Go get a specialist.
Well,
so today, I mean, just from my side, I think today's problems require a new way to work. And so I'm just very lucky to work in a way that is both the right way for my business, but also just, I think, the right way for the problems that we want to solve.
Well, what I like about that, I can tell that you would not approach something with a solution in mind already. In other words, there's not like a tool that you're just looking to deploy.
That's correct.
You can sit down with somebody and go, yeah, maybe that's not a hammer. Maybe
that's
we
right.
need something different.
And I tell that story sometimes. Like if you go to see an advertising agency, a lot of times the answer is a TV ad. You know what I mean? Like it turns out like a 30 or a 60 or a 2-minute anthem, and it's going to be a big rectangle, and it's going to start with a black screen, and then the music's going to well up. The answers that those companies give is in some ways biased, right, by the kinds of teams that they have on staff and the way that they approach the world and the way that they think about their place in the world. And Helpfully is, we work in that very fuzzy front end, right, where things aren't well defined yet. So sometimes clients come to us and tell us, hey, we're going to build a solution and it's going to have a website that goes with it.
Yep.
And it's like, well, it might not be a website.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a website, does it? And so we're actually able to work with them at that very fuzzy, formative stage, help them define the problem better with research to then go and solve it.
So to what extent is your work prescriptive? In other words, are you engaged around a problem or a challenge and you truly have an opportunity to invent the solution? Or is it more the compelling event is, hey, we like half built this thing and we screwed it up? Or we made this assumption, can you please tell us it's true? I mean...
we do all three of those. We certainly go and validate people's ongoing assumptions or we help them take apart a product that they have or a domain that they want to play in. In the second case, we play a role in helping them clarify the way that's going to go to market. But I think some of the work we do is very open-ended in that way. So sometimes a large company came to us, a pharmaceutical company, and they have a hospital partner, and they literally assign to helpfully, here's a hospital that's a partner of ours, go and find us some problems.
It's not hard.
No.
I bet you found them pretty fast.
Not hard. There are many. I was like, how can you give us a little more direction on how many? Do you want 5, 100? Should they be big or small? No, so we often, I don't think we play at the role of Big Four consultants in terms of helping companies define strategy, but we certainly help companies take a strategy that is just one bullet in a very large strategy presentation. A very large grocery chain wants to get into health and wellness. That's a really cool problem. That's all they had, right? So the brief was, we want to be in a new place that's adjacent to our current model of selling bananas to you.
So I've got a lot of questions. The first one, where would a Bain, a BCG, a McKinsey stop and you start? Or do they ever hire you in the delivery of theirs? Is there like a compatibility there?
I feel like it's a really great place where they might play a very high altitude board level role. They would obviously get paid very, very big numbers of dollars.
They always do.
But what you often buy, at least from my kind of perch, is you often buy direction or an opportunity or a particular strategic framework to reorient the company around, or here's how teams are going to work in this new world. And then you often don't get, a lot of on the ground true support to actually bring those things into the world. Mm-hmm. Now, I would say that Bain and BCG and McKinsey have all purchased or acquired user experience agencies. They've all been on the hunt, right, to buy their way into design talent and to buy that lens, right, to buy the eyes into the world of a designer, which is really different than a MBA-driven model where, those guys work at the level of spreadsheets, right? Those final deliverables are big decks, big strategic imperatives, and then usually like financial modeling that goes with those things. And we don't work from the spreadsheet into the world. We work from the world. We bring the world into the company so that you can actually make the thing. And so we do a lot of prototyping, and I think, 2 of our current engagements are underneath very large consulting companies.
So let's pause on that for a second and learn more about you. Now that we know this is what you do. You live in Atlanta. You have nothing resembling a Southern accent. Explain yourself. What's the deal?
Why don't we do a shot of whiskey, and then
will it come out? Is it in there?
Oh, it's in there.
Oh, interesting.
I grew up in Augusta, Georgia.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Did you
say sir and ma'am and y'all.
Did you work
but not with a Southern accent, which is weird.
Well, did you work on the non-regional diction, or is that just like how you came out? You just don't really have it?
I wouldn't say that...
You worked on it a little bit.
I would say I worked on it. I'm a non-traditional Southerner. I'm a New South kind of guy.
That's great.
I did notice, I think I was in 9th grade, I was growing up in Augusta, and it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Came right out of my mouth. And I was like, that should never happen again.
That's great.
There are places where, in the right circumstance, if we're at a meet and 3, it'll come out.
Yeah, and you know how to behave. You know what to select.
I do consider myself a little bit. You said, "Oh, you're not a very good Southerner," and I'm not saying that, but just.
Well, it's not Southern accent.
No Southern accent.
You're perfectly fine Southern. Was it your intention? Did you want to grow your career in Atlanta? Did you leave and come back?
I did leave and come back.
Okay.
I was, really lucky to take time off after high school. Went to Israel for a year. I went to U Chicago for my undergrad.
Great.
Spent some time in the big cities, Chicago, New York, Boston. Did a stint in Seattle. And then now back in Atlanta, and I love it.
On all those journeys, were you looking for a career or looking for yourself or both? I mean, what did you need to do all that for to come back to Atlanta?
I started my career in Boston kind of in that very first .com boom, and was able to, I graduated college, and my very first job out of college was in user experience. I was a user experience designer. That's been my whole career, is finding out what makes people tick, and then how do we bring technology to help them solve problems, to help them live better, retire faster, be smarter, shop at grocery stores better. Anything that humans can do, I think technology can help, but I think it always starts with a person. And so yeah, my kind of career trajectory has mostly been at agencies and kind of innovation companies, consultancies, and then I took a detour to go and get a master's, and then most of a PhD at Georgia Tech, working kind of as a consultant, kind of off and on through that time, and then started my own company 3 years ago.
In the beginning, did you, because the terminology we're using is actually relatively recent. It makes sense to me, but 10, 15 years ago wasn't so much in use.
I was like the only user experience guy at almost every company I worked at for like the first 10 years of my career.
Did you even get to call it that, or were you calling it consumer research or behavior? What did you...
I joined an agency just out of college, and I was the first, and for a long time, they didn't replace me. I was user experience specialist, and everyone was like, what does that mean?
You're like Highlander. It's just you.
It was just me, and they didn't even know where to put me. Like, when you get a new job, and it's the .com boom, and they're just hiring people, and they're like, you sit over here, you sit over there. And they literally didn't know where to put user experience. Like, is this a technical role? Is that a design role? Because the designers have a studio inside of the broader or agency world. And so they were like, well, you're not one of us, right? Because I'm neither fish nor fowl, right? I'm not an insider as a true designer. My design chops are not great, I would say, for the record. But I consider myself kind of lowercase d designer now and at this point in my career, but no, they didn't know where to put me. They literally were like, you should sit with the PMs.
Oh,
and
no,
I was like, no.
That's horrible.
So then I sat with the devs. But
at that time and at that stage in your career, was that exciting in that it validated your uniqueness and your originality, or did you have moments where you thought, oh God, this is weird, I need to get out of this, there's no...
No, I always knew this was the thing. Like, in college, I was working on, class projects, and like, I wasn't studying computer science, I was studying kind of like this more interdisciplinary thing, and I finally, I found these user experience, human-computer interaction, human factors engineering people, and I was like, oh my God, there's a name for the thing that I want to do. It finally dawned on me, like, there are people that do what I do, or have the kind of, approach to the world that I have. And so I was so excited. I always knew that better frictionless experiences would win in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And so when you see things like the Nest thermostat just come and just like crush what was happening in the thermostat market, those thermostats are $20, and then a Nest is $200.
Yeah.
And it's worth every penny. It's actually more than 10x better for my life. And so I just knew people would get better and better tastes in technology tools, and especially when technology comes into your home, into your personal life. It's not a work thing anymore. And that was already starting to, just the hints of that were there even in 2000.
It's an interesting discipline, and one that I find engages people who are initially misperceived as being obsessed with technology, and the truth is they love people. They're really interested in what people do. And with that, I find, comes a certain level of advocacy. So they're looking out for people.
We speak for the users.
Right, there's a
We're
mediation
like the
role. Yeah, like let's make the world better, and let's improve this. And does that resonate with you?
It does. I think I get to wake up every day, and one of the things that's great about running your own company, and I hadn't always done that, a lot of times when you don't run your own company, you just get assigned projects. Yeah. Here's your new project. This is what it is. And one of the great things about running Helpfully is I work on stuff that actually needs to exist, should exist. We should help people in these hospital environments. We should change the way something that today is full of friction and frustration and disjointed experiences. We should smooth those paths for people. And so I'm very lucky to pick and choose projects, right, that get me excited about making the world just, I'm not curing cancer, but I get to work right in places where the world is just a tiny bit measurably better because of the work that we do.
Well, what would you say to somebody listening to this who's interested in what you do, and now there kind of is a way to get at it? Because your journey was probably...
We were bushwhacking a little bit.
How would you advise somebody who wants to sit in that space between consumers, technology, and innovation?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That even now, that we don't totally know where to put them all the time or where to fit them in.
No, I think that those people have job titles that aren't the same if they work at a tiny company versus a large Fortune 100. The advice that I have is, and something that's really driven me in my career, is develop your curiosity. Develop your ability to look at the world and ask open-ended, wondering questions about why things are the way they are. So a lot of things that you see in your life and in your daily life, they're, you imagine them to be well thought out, right? You just have this assumption that like, oh, well, this building is reasonably well thought out. And the thing that I do, and I go to restaurants, and I'll just give you a very pointed example, but if you get to travel in your life into other countries and go and see other cultures and how they do things, you'll learn that like the American toilet, it's not the only kind of toilet that can be. There are many kinds. Many. And they are all different. They optimize different things. And so if you're in Southeast Asia, it's going to look a lot different than in Japan or South Korea. It's going to look a lot different in South America. And that's just one example of something that is just this piece of the built world that you might not have otherwise wondered about or been concerned about or even thought that it could be any other way, right? Like, I think that design is about seeing what could be, seeing what isn't here in the world, and then saying like, I wonder if there's something interesting over that hill, over that conceptual place.
I completely agree. I think there's something innate. There's something about somebody's, maybe their childhood experience, something about them that has that curiosity in them. I've met people around this space who, God bless them, they're engineers. They just are. They're just not, they're not contrarian enough. They're not, skeptical enough. There are plenty of other things. I'm not trying to make a value judgment. What I'm saying is they're just, they don't have that thing that picks at stuff. And I wonder if you share that, or you want to take the position this can totally be taught. Like you can learn it, you can do it. You don't have to be that way.
I think it can be fostered and encouraged, and I think that I'm sad to say, I mean, we do some pro bono work. We take our big expensive innovation workshops and we take them to middle schools and high schools and colleges around
That's
Atlanta.
Great. Don't be sad to say it.
We're not sad to say that. I'm sad to say that the American education system, it takes people who might be very creative at 5 and 6 years old, and I don't know, I have a 7-year-old, and the creative energy that comes out of kindergartners is intense, it's strong. And what we do through the education system, and there's a great TED Talk from Ken Robinson on this, and he just says, like, we just take all that creativity and lateral thinking and all these abilities to, as you said, be skeptical or be wondering or have curiosity, and we just wring it out. And by the time that kids are seniors in high school, young people, they're not as creative as they were. This
is a much hotter take than I thought it was. This is an indictment of the American education system. I love it.
I think that the data's there. I think the data supports that kind of thinking. And even if it's...
So you have to be super creative and committed and kind of crazy to break through that. You're saying that we don't really foster it.
Yes, it's something that you keep...
You really have to have a screw loose to withstand the kind of median U.S. education system and come out still creative and innovative.
I mean, it is a bit of an indictment, but I don't think it's. I don't think that those things are bad. And I don't think that that developing those skills are bad. But I do believe deeply that we should think not just about STEM as making better engineers. Mm-hmm. We should think about STEM as making better problem solvers, better critical thinkers, better creative thinkers, and analogizing kinds of thinkers. Mm-hmm. I think we should do a lot of that kind of work. Yeah, that's actually the talk I gave today was about. What deep human skills will remain when AI and automation start to take away certain parts of the rote parts of your job or your tasks?
Chilling. And if you're listening and you missed the presentation, shame on you. It's the Dig South Conference. Happens every year. Come out and you hear stuff like this. So with all of that said, in your role right now and the way you interface with brands and organizations, how do you balance education and advocacy with just like selling and problem solving? I mean, it seems like there's some tangled up themes in here. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value. Someone told me, oh, hey, the one way to know if you understand something is to try to teach it. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's some good actual, synergy kinds of loops where as you get better understanding or get a case study that comes kind of out of our studio or out of the work that we do with clients, and then I try to take that to a middle school and explain how we helped and what we did and why we made the choices we made to sixth graders, I think there's actually help. We're not just helping them understand what the world is going to be like when they're adults and when they're in the economy, but we're also helping ourselves by sharpening the way that we talk about the things that we do. So I think there's a lot of actual, mutual benefit from the kind of sharing that we do back and forth with some of these kind of pro bono or these volunteer jobs we're very lucky to get. And I wasn't trying to say those are bad. That's some of the best times we spend all week is with people who are not like us. So you've already heard me say this, right? I care a lot about people, and I think one of the things that we're trying to do on a double track is help kids get better at innovation when they're still youth, still in schools, but then also we're absolutely committed to making sure the pipeline of talent that comes out of colleges and universities and grad school programs is deeply diverse, has tons of perspectives. And one of the things we promise as consultants, and as I told you, we're this band of outsiders. When we come into a large financial company or a very big hospital chain and we want to change things, you need diversity. You need gender diversity, racial diversity, socioeconomic diversity, age diversity, perspectives or cultures that you would not have otherwise been in. Mm-hmm. Those people bring stuff to your table. And if you're building a technology solution and you only have, kind of balding white guys sitting around the table making it, you're going to make the wrong thing. You're going to make something that is...
Well, you're going to make something for them.
And I'm not saying those people are intending, right? And this is not intentional.
No, it's wrong.
But those biases creep in about what to make and why, and biases creep in into how. And when we look at machine learning or AI systems, and you look at the just recent history of those things getting out in the world in criminal justice and in mundane things, even like web search, when you search for CEO as a Google image search and you only see men show up in that search results, that's sexist.
That's problematic.
I mean, that's just plain sexist.
Yeah.
And these algorithms and these filters and feeds, they are not by intention, but they are racist, they are sexist, they are biased. And the way to fix that is to bring a better team to those problems.
Well, it's hugely problematic, and this is kind of a separate podcast, but there
Sorry,
are...
next time.
No, it's good. I mean, there are what you and I perceive as technological efficiencies that to other under-resourced or disadvantaged populations look like huge barriers, because in a different day and age when that individual would have interfaced with another person and been seen as a person, and therefore, gained the possibility of an exception that was earned, they're now looking at a computer screen that does not have a heart and does not have a brain. It has an algorithm. And if you don't check the right boxes, you're out. And while that does deliver certain efficiencies, it brings with it a whole host of unintended consequences that you were just speaking to. So that to me is the heart of the responsibility in what you do. It's not just innovation for its own sake or only to make a dollar. It's, where are we going as a society? What are we doing with this stuff?
And you'd note that a lot of times in those teams, even if they had diversity of perspective, they don't have a really good humanist view of where are we going and why. So the teams that might be solving a problem at Facebook or at Google, at large scale companies like Uber, well, they don't have maybe that anthropological view, the historical view, some of these more soft sciences or human sciences, and then no one would ask. Who would ask that if you were at a meeting at Facebook this week?
Well,
that's where I'm scared.
Look, I feel great. You and I have all the answers. Clearly, we've solved this.
We're taking over Facebook.
You're welcome, America. That's the answer. Last thing, and we'll get you out of here. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Is there a particular product, innovation, something in recent history? You mentioned Nest. Is there anything that just knocked your wig off and you thought, God, that just makes life better? I love it. It's an expression of what I believe in my craftsmanship and my art. Is there anything you can think of like that?
I've got it's a kind of a niche piece of software, but for anyone who's out there that's in the design world, you're starting to see these new design tools pop up for digital designers. So, Adobe, of course, had owned a big piece of that market. Adobe, Photoshop, and Illustrator, and you're starting to see Sketch and other tools kind of come into that marketplace. InVision has InVision Studio now, which is a fully featured graphic design application. We're using a thing called Figma, Figma.com, and Figma is as much better as it's so much better than Photoshop and Illustrator, just like Nest crushes your Honeywell thermostat. It is that much better.
Yeah.
It is totally collaborative. So we bring the entire studio into the cloud with us, like a Google Docs, where you can watch people type in Google Docs. This is actually, and I'm just wowed by the kind of technical performance of how they're doing what they do, because they have basically a Sketch clone or a Photoshop clone in the cloud. It is so incredibly fast, and it has changed the way we work as a team, because the UX designer, the graphic team, the writer, the technologists are all in the same piece of software doing all of their work at the same time, but the artifact they're using is not. So I think that as you moved away from waterfall, we still just, because of the tools people used, they wound up very siloed, right? Or wound up, it's not waterfall, but it is true that the UX designer owns the wireframes because she's the lady who has the keys to that piece of software.
It's extremely aware of waterfall, right? It's like a thing.
It's waterfall aware.
Right. And that's what I love.
No,
about,
I think that's right.
What I love about way better, because there's a difference between better and way better. And way better fundamentally reconsiders what the thing can be. And I have a lot of stuff in my life that's better. It's an iteration of something else that was crappy. And I get excited,
for way better.
Yeah. And you don't see it that often, and when you do, it really changes the way you even think about what you're doing.
It has
changed.
It has changed the way we think about the work we do.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I mean, I think it hits that bar for you of, that bar you suggest. The bar that you've got is it going to change how I think about the problem?
Yeah.
And for us, we're playing with some really fun new tools.
Figma.
Figma.com. Check
Figma,
it out,
if you're
everybody.
listening, send us a check. That was a really sincere endorsement. It's been a pleasure. Zach with Helpfully. It's helpfully.com. Really?
Helpfully.com.
That's impressive, friends. Zach at Helpfully, thank you.